The main character is Ichabod Crane, who is a school teacher from Connecticut. The story begins with the love interest between Ichabod Crane, a local woman, and a local man. Both these men wanted to marry the young woman, and they're doing anything they could to make sure that happens. The story moves on to a local party in the town. Ichabod Crane had his heart set on proposing to her that night, but he couldn't. So after the party, he went home, heart heavy, because he knew that most likely he wasn't going to marry her. As he was riding home, he was riding through a very creepy and strange forest. There's many rumors that this forest is haunted by ghosts of soldiers of the Revolutionary War. As he continued on his gallop home, he began imagining all these urban legends. Eventually, as he continued down the forest, he saw was a man on a horse. But this man was huge, a lot bigger than him. And as Ichabod looked closer, he noticed that he was holding his head. So a frightened Ichabod turned around and galloped back to the forest where he came from. He knew he had to get to the bridge because local legends say that the ghost cannot cross a certain bridge. As he's galloping away, the headless horseman is catching up to him. Ichabod Crane makes it to the bridge, and as he's galloping through it, he thinks he's safe. But as he goes through it, the headless horseman went over the bridge. And as Ichabod came face to face with the headless horseman threw his head right to Ichabod's face. The next day, the word around the town was Ichabod Crane disappeared. Many people believed it was due to the legend. But to this day, no one knows.
The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, written by Washington Irving, has been a popular and frightening urban legend since the year 1819. His story was published among a collection of other stories that he had written, and it was called The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon. Washington Irving was a writer from Manhattan, New York, and was the youngest of 11 children. As a young boy, Irving traveled often and was also sent up to Tarrytown, New York by his parents during an outbreak of the yellow fever. This area north of the city consisted widely of Dutch immigrants, who had many folklore stories and spooky tales, many of which were believed to inspire Irving's future novels, especially The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. In fact, it is believed that his story helped people, as they felt as though they were lacking a sense of culture after the Revolutionary War.
Yet two of his most famous stories, Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle, have become such an ingrained part of our American DNA that most people can give you the summary of both stories even if you've never read it. But in his time, Irving was one of the most famous men in the whole world. If he were alive today, he would be a regular feature in gossip magazines. He was famous not just for his work, but for his personality and for the people that he was affiliated with. His life would have been the stuff of any true Hollywood story.
The Wild Huntsman, a similar ghostwriter who supposedly haunted those in medieval Germany, suggests that Irving was definitely not the first to create such a wild legend. Although Irving had spent time in Germany, many believe that he got his ideas for the romantic and haunting story when he spent his time in England. Between the time periods of 1798 through 1837, England experienced a movement in their literature. This time period had a twist like never before. Instead of the intellectual and practical writings in the revolutionary times, a type of literature sprung up that included individualism and expression, which similarly related to the romantic underlying of Irving's story. Walter Scott, an influential romantic novelist in England during this time period, became Irving's mentor. Over time, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow has produced a variety of entertainment items, mainly movies that have been introduced into our society. Instead of a simple story, many of the newer movies that have come out have included longer story plots and a variety of interesting details that increases the dramatization of the plot. Fox's hit TV series, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, completely changed the plot as they play Ichabod off as a married man who fought in the Revolutionary War and was killed and rises from the dead 230 years in the future. In the Tim Burton movie, Ichabod was a police inspector who was sent to investigate the murders that took place in the Drury town. Although the story has consistently changed over time, the main feature, the Headless Horseman, has haunted society since it was written. JR and Trish Quintana, a couple who have been to the small town of Sleepy Hollow, have come to understand this story better through their visit. As we ask them some questions, reflect on your own knowledge of the legend. Ask yourself if the knowing of the story would indeed impact your experiences when visiting the town of Sleepy Hollow.
Before you went to the town of Sleepy Hollow, did you know the actual legend of Sleepy Hollow?
No, I didn't. I don't know. Did you?
I had heard briefly about it. I mean, I knew it was a headless horseman, but I really didn't know the whole a lot of expectations. I mean, I knew that the story was about this headless horseman, and so I figured, you know, it was kind of spooky, kind of scary in a sense. So I really didn't know what to expect.
Did anything unusual happen during your visit?
Yep.
Yeah, actually, a couple of things.
Yeah, our sons, we went into the restroom, which was down below in the basement, and in one of the buildings, the visitor center. And when we got down there, the pipes from the upstairs are very exposed. And when we were in there, all of a sudden, you could hear like this thumping noise, and the place upstairs was closed, so nobody was there.
Yeah, it was closed. There was nobody there.
The other thing was my son, we had just visited the 9/11 tour, and they had these
Rubber
bands,
bands.
and he had it around his wrist, and apparently it fell off in there, and it was too tight for him to for it to just fall off. He had to physically take it off. But when he went in to use the restroom, apparently it fell in there, because later we found out that it was missing. We went back in there and it was sitting on the floor in the restroom right over there. And we couldn't explain how or why it would have fallen off. So.
Yeah. And you could hear, like, you know, because we went into the bathroom, but there was like only a couple of stalls, I think, in each restroom. And so there was actually, 6 of us?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to kind of take turns going in, and I remember when I went into the bathroom, I could feel this, like, really cold breeze come up as soon as I closed the stall. Like, I could feel this cold breeze, and then you could hear like people were whispering, but there was nobody there. And so, we all got the heebie-jeebies, huh? We really did. All of us got the heebie-jeebies. So it was kind of, it was kind of freaky. So
Okay. Was there anything else about the town that was interesting to you guys, or?
I thought it was, because when you think that kind of thing. So I do, and I don't know, maybe just it could be a mindset or a mind game type thing where, I guess you're in a way kind of expecting something, but you just don't know what. But I did notice, I felt like when we left the city that was next to it to go in, that it was a little different, like it felt a little different.
On the usual activity, would you go back to the town itself?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
I think everybody should, if they get a chance to go to New York, I think that Sleepy Hollow is a very interesting place.
I really don't. I mean,
Okay.
folklore, stories passed from generation to generation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was gonna say. Just something that happened. That maybe that's something somebody witnessed and then just carried it.
But no concrete evidence.
But no
Yeah.
concrete evidence. Yeah.
The town of Sleepy Hollow is a popular tourist destination, and while some go there for its popularity or quaintness, others go there for thrill, excitement, or to find out for themselves if the legend is true.
This urban legend has been around for over 200 years. Many people still believe that the urban legend is real, but no evidence has actually proved that it exists.